Hello, I'm Eric Snodgrass, and thank you for watching this weekly Ag Weather Update brought to you by the Farm Credit Associations of North Carolina. Well, starting off here on Monday morning, one of the things I was watching as the sun came up right here was some of the early cloud field. Now, what you see over the Atlantic, this was part of the cloud field that brought in some wetter weather we saw over the weekend, but it was just interesting to watch some of the very low cloud here as the sun came up, just kind of peel away with the heat, and you can also see the weak front coming down right in through here in parts of northeastern North Carolina. That was fascinating. And then I think my favorite thing to watch is all of the mountain waves. Can you see them coming off the Appalachian Mountains here? Just a really interesting picture overall, just to see with what's going on here on a Monday morning. Now, over the last 7 days, of course, the main story has been in the west for the whole United States. It's been just a persistent onshore flow across the west. But we did have a few systems that came through the middle part of the country. And the big picture I want you to see with each of these successive systems, not just here in the Carolinas and surrounding states, but around the country, is what it's doing in terms of drought reduction. Now, some of the storms that we did see last week that came through the Carolinas were kind of nasty. In fact, many of them canceled flights last week. I got stuck in Charlotte. I had to drive all the way to Tampa for a conference here after getting stuck in Charlotte because of those storms. But we can see some of the very heavy rain that have fallen over parts of the southeast, the south, the mid-south. And a lot of this has gotten into the Mississippi River, which is recovering quite quickly. Just want to make note here that parts of the southern and western plains have missed out on this. There's a lot of hard red winter wheat that's grown here. And even though there's still a lot of snow on the ground in this whole area that I'm kind of covering, which is good for the longer term drought issues. They've been quite dry through the Canadian prairie and the northern plains of the United States as of late. But again, a lot of the action has been in the west. But it's going to be a long time before the drought monitor shows major changes for the west. I want to show you that because a new one of these came out late last week. So we can roughly say that the peak in drought in 2022 reached at the very end of October and beginning of November. And that's the map you're looking at here. And what's fun to do is I'm going to show you the latest drought monitor here, which was one released last Thursday. So again, this was last Thursday. This was November 1st. So major changes here in drought across the United States. We have questions as to how this is going to continue to evolve, because what's been important to note here is this part of North and South Carolina, right along the coast, down toward the south. This has been an area that's had a difficult time shaking some of the drought. In fact, even if you just look back over the last 2 weeks, that's been the region that's been driest, right along the coast. Now, what have we not seen this winter? We have not, despite some forecasts suggesting it to happen, we've not seen what we call the Miller B system or a Miller A system. These are the systems that roll right up along the East Coast, the big nor'easters that can deliver lots and lots of precipitation. That's been a missing feature. Every time a new system gets forecast, what happens? It trends west in its mean position with time. We're actually going to see that happen again with the storm system that's coming out mid to late this week. I'll show you that in a few moments. But I want to get this bigger picture stuff just in the back of your minds. And so we saw this map come out at the end of last year. It was NOAA's outlook through January on what they thought the drought picture was going to look like. And to be honest, this is what their drought outlook not only looks like through January, but through the rest of winter. They have actually got this area, plus my neck of the woods, and the west having drought removed, or at least being improved. But this area not expected to hang on. And so we need to just ask some questions as we look at the longer term forecast as to the validity of this. We're going to do that here in just a few seconds. But I want to stress something. Much of the world right now that is interested in the commodities we grow, wants to know, how does the United States come out of winter in terms of its drought picture? And as of late, a lot of that focus has been in the west because we've had such incredibly strong onshore flow. And that strong onshore flow, born off a jet stream that's begun over China and finished its way here in the western United States, has delivered a tremendous amount of precipitation. We saw that at the beginning. But in terms of snowpack, this will be one of the pre-season clues as to the drought health of the country, is that we've got huge snowpack in parts of the Sierra Nevada, parts of the Rockies. In fact, the only places that are below normal right now are in the southern Rockies and also here kind of the Olympic Mountains. Now, we just think about this overall, again, for drought health for so much of the plains and the western United States. And a lot of folks are keeping a close eye on this. But there's actually another place around the world I'm watching as well. So if we look here from Rutgers Snow Lab, that's where this comes from, Rutgers University. We saw that as we finished 2022, there were a few places that were important to notice the deficits, in snow. We talked about Southern Rockies, but I want you to think about what's going on in Europe as well. Europe is just now in the middle of a multi-week warm spell in the middle of winter here. We could call it a heat wave at the very beginning of the year. In the last 10 days, several places in Europe have seen temperatures that have averaged 10 degrees Celsius above normal. Very, very mild. And this has melted a lot of the snow in the Alps. Think about the mountains in Switzerland. Those mountains, the snowpack feeds the river systems that run through like Germany and Poland. And there's some concern that the very mild conditions there have possibly melted a lot of the snowpack early. It's certainly having an impact on the ski season, and they're usually the first to complain about the lack of snow and what that might mean for drought in the upcoming year. I want you all just to be thinking about that, because if you not only look in Europe over the last 10 days, but notice much of China and North America, very, very mild. So we have questions on when things are going to start to change around. Again, let's just focus on this bigger picture. So I was putting this in my morning reports today too. It's an international, it's a whole globe view of temperature anomalies for the next 15 days. So these major population centers of this side of Asia, North America and Europe, very, very mild, while much of Russia and Siberia, very cold. As we play this forward, watch China, okay? It's the first place to see the temperatures collapse back toward colder than average. And that's going to do a lot of things, but one of the biggest things is it's going to disrupt the jet stream. And I'll make a case that that one thing actually improves our drought outlook here, especially that drier corner in southeastern parts of North Carolina. And as we play this forward, while we don't see major temperature swings for us all the way through the 24th, okay? What we do see in this particular pattern is a change in the jet stream behavior. I want to show it to you. This is what we expect the jet stream to look like. Looking down on the North Pole right now, it doesn't just begin in China. It actually begins way over here in Africa, comes across the Middle East, then goes across Asia into China, and extends into the Pacific, unbroken all the way to the West Coast. Now, what I want you to see is this. As we play this forward, going out here through this week, into the weekend, getting into the middle of next week, right there. Do you notice how the jet stream is now retracted? It's no longer fast through the Gulf of Alaska. And as we get out here to like the 19th and 20th, the split flow in the Gulf of Alaska, and then the fast jet stream flow from Texas, North Carolina, that right there could be a signal for a very wet middle part of January. So can you stuff this in the back of your mind? Because I'm going to come back and show it to you more in just a few moments here. Now, in the near term, the pattern is still dominated by what's coming into the west. So this was last night. So it's like click play, that all gets out. And so there you are. This is through this morning. Now playing throughout the rest of this week, we're under higher pressure through Tuesday, getting out there into Wednesday. And our first chance at some showers nearby won't even be until Wednesday night, even early Thursday morning, right in through there. But there's a system curling up here over parts of Illinois and Missouri that's going to be spreading through the Tennessee and Ohio Valley. This will be Thursday midday, Thursday evening. We're going to have to be on the lookout here for some stronger storms and some heavier rain moving over the Appalachian Mountains. That comes over us in the overnight hours on Thursday. The front comes right over the top of us for Thursday night to Friday morning, and it clears pretty quickly. There's enough cold air on the back side of it, as you can see here, for some snow in the Appalachian Mountains, but it'll be on the west-facing slopes primarily. So that system goes out, and we're a little cooler following it. But what we're going to be watching midweek next week is another one, a little bit farther to the north here. This is Monday of next week. And that system comes out, and it takes a little bit farther to the north trajectory, but it means by next Tuesday we could get some more precipitation out of this as well. So in the next 10 days, we're really looking at two different systems that could roll through and bring in some precip. Now, I know some of you, we talked about a lot about the snow in the west. You might want to know about the snow here in the Appalachian Mountains. So let's just take a look at what we're expecting here. So again, this will be late this week. There it is, Friday into Saturday morning, right there. Friday into Saturday morning. The chances on the west-facing slopes of grabbing, 4 to 8 inches of snow, it's in the cards right now. It'll all be elevation dependent, but that's what we're currently seeing. But on the chances of total rainfall for us, this is the probability through these next two systems of the Carolinas, Virginia, this area picking up at least an inch of rainfall. And so you can see that, as you go farther to the west, the chances increase, possibly 50 to 70% chance of getting at least an inch out of this. We remain drier along the coast because these systems continue to trend west with time in the forecast models. So rather than like I said, getting over to the East Coast and running up. Well, what did you see that last one do? Let's go back and take a look at it real quick. See this system right here? Forecast models, I don't know, last week had it right off the Carolina coast. Just trended it west with time, preventing the right set of conditions to develop a big low like this over the Carolinas. So that's what we've been seeing in the overall forecast model trend. Now, does that ever change? Well, let's go out a week from now. That's when the trough, that was that system I just told you about, is now sitting off coast. And what we're going to watch here is the pattern shift breaking up the strong jet stream flow coming into the west after about the 18th, which we're on now, through the 19th, 20th. Now, the model's way out here around the 21st, 22nd, and 23rd want to give us what we call a positive P&A pattern. Jet stream jumps up here and then dives. And if it ejects like this, that's a stronger signal for more systems to be coming out of the Mid-South, coming over toward the Carolinas. And that's why when you look out there, the week 2 forecast from the CPC, or if you look here from the European model, wetter, or if you look even at NOAA's forecast model, the GFS, wetter. So we're all seeing this signal starting to show up here. And this is probably part of the bigger picture as to why, the National Weather Service is saying, if we keep seeing this occur, fronts come through, we do deliver on moisture, possibly eliminating some of the drier conditions in certain places. But what about the temperatures, all right? As we play this forward, this is Tuesday's highs, getting into Wednesday and Thursday. I mean, we're mild for this time of year across much of North Carolina and surrounding states through Thursday. We know that the front comes through, though, and by Friday into Saturday, we cool back off. So it's a cooler weekend for us as that front comes through. But you watch, another big rebound here in the central United States. That's warmth that's going to come toward us. And as you look out there, this is day 5 through 10, and then this is day 10 through 15. So the first place to break down the temperature patterns over in China, it's going to be a while before we start to see it happening here. Now, there's a couple things I'm watching carefully. One of them is the stratospheric polar vortex, which is right here. We want to watch for any time where this thing takes on an odd shape, like it does have right now, or even breaks apart into a couple pieces. And the longer range forecast is suggesting that there might be what we call a sudden stratospheric warming event here in early to mid-January that could really perturb or bust up the polar vortex. Now, this has to link up with a tropospheric feature in order for it to deliver brutally cold air. And it usually takes a few weeks. So even though I'm talking about this out here like the 15th through the 19th of January, it may not be until February before we start to see the effect of this. But it could be something to watch carefully. This is the stratospheric warming event, and it's disrupting the polar vortex. And just so you know, the way we monitor it was with these graphs. Anytime the polar vortex is cold and windy, its values are way down here. This is the current forecast, though, going from the bottom, where it's quite mild right now, and starting to show this. So what I'm saying here is that the polar vortex is cold and strong, so North America is mild. Does that make sense? And if the polar vortex warms and weakens, we run the risk of going colder, usually 2 to 4 weeks after this thing changes. So, just as an example, this little warm-up right here preceded the late December Arctic outbreak. So I'm just telling you, I'm watching that for right now. But according to the CPC, we just kind of slide down here and have a look at a couple of things. You've already seen this map. How about their week 3, week 4 outlook? Until those things start to take shape, we see more mild and possibly above normal precipitation. That's a very consistent forecast. Let me give it to you in terms of what the European model's saying. So I'm going to take you to my favorite website here, weatherbell.com. We're going to look at the European weeklies. And let's just click on this and let's go out to a 30-day precipitation anomaly. And we'll stretch it out there. There you go. That's like through Jan 17 through February 17. Same thing. See it? Very, very similar forecast. Now we start to say, well, is this consistent with La Nina? Because right now, we still have a La Nina. It's not like it used to be. We're still cold here, but warmer waters are starting to surface here. Remember how I always used to draw strong trade winds, strong westerly wind bursts? Well, guess what's gone? Trade winds are still there, but the westerly wind bursts are out. So this La Nina is showing us some signs of shift and of change. And the newest long-term weather forecast looks something like this. So what you've got here is January's sea surface temperature map, anomaly map, and there's the La Nina. Now watch, if you go from January to February and March and April, they've got a really quick fade on it. And then we go from there into May, June, and July. Now let's think bigger picture. What does this mean for us in the Carolinas? The summer correlations are weak. You can't look at this and go, I know exactly what's going to happen in the Carolinas. Nope. The Midwest, this, for the primary corn and soybean belt, is a wet signal. The warmth you see here is a drier signal. These are competing against one another. This is called the PDO, the negative phase of it. And this is ENSO, or the positive phase of it, we call El Nino, not working together. But the only thing that I can say with some sort of certainty is, in the past, when an El Nino event occurs like this, we do tend to see higher wind shear and fewer hurricanes over the Atlantic. But there's no guarantee that this is going to transition as fast as currently being thought. So let's come back to the United States and show you what I do have some confidence in. So let's do a seasonal precipitation anomaly forecast. And let's take it just now, January, February, March. What I think this is going to look like is something like these two maps. I'm going to make an adjustment. Do I buy the wetter in the west? Sure. Do I buy the the active storm track Mid-South, Midwest, Ohio Valley? Yes. Don't buy this. I don't continue to see this being very dry. I think we're actually going to see a much more active pattern than being alluded to, and you can thank the polar jet stream for really influencing that. So I just want to show you this latest data, though, so you have a good idea about what it is showing. Now from here, I want to finish with one more international thing, and that's going to be what's going on in South America. Because the models continue to show dry conditions for Argentina, parts of southern Brazil, Uruguay. They keep trying to forecast precipitation, then as it gets closer and closer to the event, the models are drying things out, which means the drought issues in Argentina continue. In Brazil, it's the opposite story. There's heavy rain right in through here. That's central Brazil, Mato Grosso, Goiás, Minas Gerais, and Sao Paulo. Those are those big states there. And even north into Mato Grosso, these precipitation anomalies are not large, and where it's drier to the north, this is not the main agriculturally productive area. Plus, they're trying to harvest here, get soybeans out, get corn in. So being a little drier than normal is not a bad thing. This pushes Brazil to continue to get larger and larger in terms of the crop, and it's going to continue to cause problems in Argentina. And this is going to be a problem in Argentina until we get two major things breaking down. One is the behavior of the winds in the jet stream level near the Antarctic. And the second thing is La Nina's got to just completely give up and allow the MJO to take over. And it's not doing that quite as well as forecast for South America in the next 10 days, which is why we continue to see drought. So I'm going to wrap it up there. Hope you all have a good start to your new year, and we'll talk again very soon. Thanks.